Hello everyone, this is Joe with Southeastern Frontiers, and today I'm hiking to the stone cuts on Monte Sano State Park in North Alabama. The Stone Cuts Trail is a 2.4 mile, pretty popular trail on Monte Sano State Park. You start by descending steeply down into a valley between the ridges, between Monte Sano proper and another ridge. Then you climb up that ridge, and the Stone Cuts are at the top. Then I took a side trip up to Panther on this trip, and then back down into the valley, and finally steeply climb back up to the top of Monte Sano before completing the trail along the flat plateau on top of the mountain. The trail is easy to moderate and good for children, and has some fascinating geology to view along the way. I'm starting this hike in the bikers parking lot, which is across the street from the hikers parking lot in Monte Sano. I'm doing it in a counterclockwise direction, as that I think is the most interesting way to go. You start off by descending down the Sinks Trail from the bikers parking lot. The Stone Cuts is one of my favorite hikes on Monte Sano, not because it's particularly spectacular, but it is nice, it's family friendly, it's interesting, and it was when I first moved to North Alabama 20 years ago, and I asked where to hike, people gave me two options. They said, you need to go to Rainbow Mountain, which is in Madison, and I have a video for that, I'll include the link, and you need to try out the Stone Cuts on Monte Sano. So this is one of the first hikes I ever did in Alabama, and it's still a favorite of mine today. All right, we have come to our first intersection. So this is the intersection with the Mountain Mist Trail. The Mountain Mist Trail goes off that way and off that way. It's a very popular mountain biking trail, but you can hike it too. We are going to continue on the Sinks Trail down to the bottom of this valley. That's straight ahead. The Sinks Trail that we're hiking along is named for a number of very large sinkholes. I don't know if you can see it in this view here, but there's a pretty steep sinkhole down there below where the trail is here. But that's what it's named for. There's a bunch of these, and if you take the Sinks Trail to the left at the intersection up here, you can go down into the bottom of some of these sinks. There's a nice resting area here along the Sinks Trail where the Goat Trail branches. All right, we have now come to the intersection with the Keith Trail, and where the Sinks Trail and the Stone Cuts Trail split apart. So the Keith Trail's over here. It's mostly a mountain biking trail. I've actually never hiked it. The Sinks Trail goes off to the left, also popular with mountain bikers, but interesting for hiking as well. And then the Stone Cuts Trail continues straight on ahead, up the next little ridge. As you're climbing up this second ridge on the Stone Cuts Trail, keep your eyes peeled for fossils in the rocks along the trail, which for me is easy to do because I'm pretty much head down anyway, going uphill. But you can see a lot of fossils like these imprints right here. See that little horizontal set of lines in that rock there, and in this one they're vertical? Those are the imprints of leaves of the scale trees from about 300 million years ago. This mountain is covered with fossils of those leaves. You'll see them all over if you keep your eyes peeled. Most of the way up the side of this ridge, I have come to a Y in the trail with the Stone Cuts Bypass Trail to the left and the actual Stone Cuts Trail to the right. The bypass was created for mountain bikers primarily, so that they wouldn't have to go through the caves that are a part of the Stone Cuts. Here's another really nice scale tree fossil. They get more common as you get higher up on the mountain. All right, the top of the ridge is in sight. The double blaze means there's a sharp turn coming. All right, we are on top of the ridge, and the Stone Cuts Trail goes off that way. That's the direction we came from. And if you wander off this way, it's kind of a dead end, but there are absolutely a ton of scale tree leaf fossils up there. So I'm not going to go that way today, but just wanted you to know. That climb up the ridge there warmed me up this morning. It's a nice cool morning here in early September. Beautiful day for Alabama. This is the descent into the stone cuts proper. It's a really nice cliff wall here. And somebody went to a lot of trouble to build in a set of steps with stones. I certainly appreciate it, because otherwise it's a pretty steep climb down. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the geology here while I'm here. Most of the rocks in this part of Alabama are limestone. They're what they're called Mississippian limestone. They were laid down about 300 million years ago at the bottom of a shallow sea, when Africa was just shortly a few hundred miles away, before it split off from North America and South America. So at that time, there was a sea here called the Tethys Sea, and it was not deep, and it was full of life. And a lot of those organisms, including coral reefs and microscopic organisms, had shells and bodies made of calcium carbonate. When they died, they sank to the bottom and piled up in these thick layers. When the continents moved around and the land was raised here, water seeped into the limestone and dissolved it, and caused it to erode away. It results in what's called a karst geology, where there's tons of caves in the rocks. And certainly Monte Sano is covered, or Swiss cheese filled, with caves. Very, very many. And I have featured a couple of cave entrances on my previous videos. I'm not a caver myself, but it is a very popular activity around here. These stones also preserve a lot of fossils of the organisms that lived then, as I featured on my channel before. Lots of crinoids, lots of leaves of scale trees that washed in from the nearby shores and sank to the bottom. The stone cuts, in this case, are not a normal cave that's caused by water dissolving the limestone. In this case, there was a cliff, like you see here, a limestone cliff, and probably at some point in the past, there was an earthquake that knocked the rocks loose, and they split off and slid down the slope. So the rocks you see on my right used to be attached up here to the rocks on my left. They're now down here, and they have broke off and slid downhill. And so that becomes very evident as we continue into the stone cuts. And this is what makes the stone cuts one of my favorite sites to visit. It is endlessly interesting because of the rocks that are exposed, the way the rocks were split off and slid down. And also, there are these interesting little sort of caves. They're not caves like you normally think of in limestone. Like I said, they're not dissolved by water. They're caves that were caused because when the rocks split off and slid downhill, they pulled out layers of limestone that made little shelves that cover areas underneath. And this trail goes right through them, which makes it very popular with kids because it has all the fun of going through a cave without the fear of going through a cave, because the caves are short and pretty well lit. Extremely entertaining. So you can walk through these stone cuts and always have light above, not far away. Always have an exit of the cave not far away. So it's a very friendly and safe way to explore small caves. And I highly recommend it. If you never thought you could handle caves, this might be the place for you, because it's not near as scary as those deep dark holes in the ground. And here we are. This is basically the end of the stone cuts. We come back out in the open here. So there's a nice little bench here. I have eaten many a lunch sitting there. And I highly recommend it to bring some grade school age children or older out here. Let them run around through some of these side passages here. These just make a bunch of loops and come back out right on this main channel. Watch them so if they climb up too high, they don't have a problem. But around in the bottom of these little side passages, there's no dangers really. After exiting the stone cuts, we come downhill a little bit here and we join up with the stone cut bypass we passed earlier today. There it is. So if we went back that way, we'd go back the way we came in, but I like to continue off to the right and make a loop trail out of this. So that's what we're going to do today. So off we go. I have come upon the Panther Knob Trail intersection with the stone cuts. I've actually never been up to Panther Knob, so I think I'm going to give that a try today. I don't think there's anything really to see, but it is the highest point on this ridge, so I'm going to go check it out. I have reached the top of the mountain here, top of the ridge. It's on my map as Logan Point. There's a rock here, but not much for views with the trees. Maybe in the winter time when all the leaves are off, it would be all right. All right, I think I'm going to head back the way I came. Back to the Stone Cuts Trail. We are back to the Stone Cuts Trail. So we're going to continue downhill back into the valley before we're going back up on Monte Sano on the other side. We have come to another junction, and so in this case, we want to take the shortest route to the trailheads and office and picnic area. So that's off that way. Continuing downhill. We have now reached the intersection with the Sinks Trail. If you remember, we crossed the Sinks Trail on our way up to the stone cuts. And the sinks are down in that valley, which are literally giant sinks where caves have caved in. So we're continuing on the shortest route back to the trailheads, park office, and picnic area, which is really the Sinks Trail loop. So now we start going uphill, and we got to climb all the way back to the top of Monte Sano. It's a climb. All right, we have come to a major trail crossing. This is the Mountain Mist Trail. Like I said, it's a popular mountain biking trail that we crossed before on the way down. So we want to continue here on the Sinks Trail, which takes us back up to the top of the mountain. And it gets really steep from here. I don't know if you can see that little patch of blue sky up there, but that's where we're headed. Whew, it's a climb. So anyway, here we go. Taking a break here, partway up the mountain. There's a nice little ledge here where you can look over the edge if you dare. Another place where a piece of rock has fallen off. It's a nice little flower here. Very pretty. We have reached the old road. It used to be the main entrance of the park long ago, but landslides have ended that. But people still ride bikes down it and have a ball.
Slide down so easy when you're going slow.
We're going to go back up the trail, back to the parking lot. The eventual fate of this entire road, falling into a sinkhole. This is the old entrance to Monte Sano State Park, Monte Sano, up there. And here's a beautiful viewpoint. Hello.
Hi.
Oh, they're cute. See that ridge over there? That's where we just were. That's where the stone cuts are. And then the mountains and valleys beyond. There's a bench over there. And that little hill back there, that's Panther Knob. That's that little mountain we summited. The stone cuts are kind of right in that dip there on that ridge on the other side. And then the high part of there is called the Golan Heights. This is a popular viewpoint. Lots of people come up here. It is nice. To return to the where we started the trail, we need to cross over the top of the plateau a little ways on the North Plateau Loop Trail, which is right in front of me here. So we're going to take the North Plateau Loop Trail, which is very heavily trafficked, as you can see. And this will take us from this viewpoint over to where our parking lot is, over by some cabins. There comes a point where you reach some pavement, and the North Plateau Loop Trail goes off that way on the blue blazes. But it's a little shorter if we just take the pavement, past some little cabins off to the left here. So that's the way we're going to go. We'll leave the crowd of people behind too. These cabins are really interesting. They're made of stone with fireplaces and screened-in porches. I've never stayed at one, but I've always wanted to. I think they'd be nice. Views out across the mountains. Here's one of those stone cabins. It doesn't have anyone staying in it right now. So I'll walk over by it so we can see it up more close. Made out of the local limestone. Comes with a fire pit. Has a little back porch with a beautiful view. We have returned to where we started at the bikers parking lot on Monte Sano.